and I have colleagues who are white and don't feel the pain of our brown and black colleagues and children, that makes me really angry.
Welcome to It's Complicated. I'm Orlando Bowen. Over the last number of months, we've been challenged by things that have stirred people emotionally, that have caused people to be angry. And that anger has manifested in a number of different ways. You've seen folks out on the streets marching. You've seen people behind the scenes trying to work from an advocacy perspective. And today, we have an opportunity to spend time with these two very special guests. Antonella Kalaitzis and Skye Bowen, two educators who care so deeply about making a difference through their work that some would argue that it doesn't even make sense. When it comes to making a difference, it's not just what they talk about, it's how they live. And in conversations with them, they've expressed that they've been angry as well. So today we're going to talk about that. I'm angry, now what? It's such an honor to have you here on the show. I have such respect for your wisdom and your commitment to excellence, and the fact that you are using all that you have and really standing up to make a difference right now. Over the last number of months, we've had some things that have challenged us as a society, challenged us as a country, challenged the world in terms of anti-Black racism and anti-Indigenous racism. So I want to ask you, over these last 6 months, have you been angry? Antonella?
I have been angry. I've been angry because I guess the piece is with my fellow colleagues, I feel like they're not angry enough. Most of my friends and family are white, and because it's not a white issue, I find that people aren't as invested because it's not their people. So I'm angry because I'm not seeing enough white people care about other people who aren't white. And when we teach in our workplace, and we have many students who are brown and black, and I have colleagues who are white, and don't feel the pain of our brown and black colleagues and children, that makes me really angry.
How do you cope with that, right? Because you're talking about spaces you're going into. You're seeing things that are stirring you, and it sounds like you're looking around saying, are you seeing what I'm seeing? And folks aren't responding the same way. How do you cope with that?
Honestly, I really try to bring people into the work in really loving ways. I try to use myself as an example in the work and say, hey, I'm learning this. I try to model that I'm early in the journey too, but if we open up our hearts and open up our minds to other people's struggle, we can actually step into this work. So I kind of look back and model things maybe I did 10 years ago in my teaching career that had really good intentions for kids, but they were harmful for kids because I wasn't unaware. I wasn't as conscious. So I feel like really what I try to do with my fellow colleagues or even my family and friends is just try to get people to open themselves and try to make connections. So, have you ever felt this kind of pain? This pain is a pain that mirrors that type of pain. And really getting people to actually open their hearts to the struggles that maybe your oppression needs to be our oppression because we live in community.
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of community and people experiencing, deep pain, Skye, you've been an educator for 19 years. You've worked the last 3 years in a youth detention center, and you see pain on a firsthand basis, right? Have you been angry, and how have you coped with your anger over these last number of months?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've been very angry, and I think part of it comes from when you're coming from the community that is experiencing ongoing harm and ongoing racism, and nothing is being done about it, or it feels like that, you become very angry about that. So when people are talking about, when George Floyd was killed, and people would say, oh, well, that happens in the US, it doesn't happen here in Canada. Well, we've lived through that. Our family has lived through a very similar experience. And to be able to go from 10 years ago when we experienced it, and people still seeing this now and thinking that this is a novelty, if we really look at the history of racism and oppression and the harm that has been done to Black bodies over years and years, we'll see that history is repeating itself. It's just done in different ways. And so when students are in a classroom and they are being harmed because they don't feel safe with a teacher, or if they are in youth corrections, and they don't feel safe within that space, then what are we doing about that? And right now it feels like there's a level of complacency, that there's not enough advocacy to really address the harm and the racial trauma that many people are experiencing. And so for me, that anger, sometimes it just sits there, right? Because you have to realize that even myself as a Black educator, if I manifest that anger, I could be taken as being too angry or too passionate or too intense. These are words that have often been used to describe me as a Black woman. I have too much energy, and if I say too much of that, I'm going to be too divisive. Like I don't want you to hear those kind of things. So sometimes I internalize it because I know that the implications of me speaking out about it risk how people are going to receive me. And that's frustrating and creates more anger. And then there's other times that I realize that I can't stand back. I have to say something and I have to advocate because there are young people who are literally dying. I saw 2 young students of mine die as a result of gun violence this past year. And it was devastating and it's heartbreaking. And it shouldn't have happened, right? And yet there are so many things about our system that are flawed that enabled the young men and many of the young men that I teach to make decisions that are bad decisions, because those decisions are easier than making the decision to go to school every day. And so if you think about that, about how many Black students feel harmed and are impacted by going to school every day and feel safer being on the streets connected to things that are negative behaviors, what are we doing? What are we doing about that? And that makes me angry.
It's one thing to make a decision and not know what the potential outcome is going to be. It's another thing to know that if I make this decision, if I say this thing, if I do this, there's a chance that I may lose vocational opportunities. There's a chance that I may lose friends and relationships in terms of people that are close to me. Why would someone in their right mind make a decision knowing that the cost could be that they lose opportunities or that they lose friends?
I make the decision because it's the right thing to do. And I couldn't live with myself if I didn't do the right thing. So my heart knows what is right and what is wrong. And so I don't want to be promoted or have these opportunities if it's not grounded in my integrity. I need to be good when I go to sleep at night. I need to feel like I did whatever I could every single day to help fight for my brothers and sisters.
Awesome. Skye, when it comes to doing everything that you can to fight for the young people, and I know that there's been early mornings, there's been late nights, there's been sleepless nights. What drives that for you?
I think what drives it for me is that in every opportunity that I've had to teach and learn from the students that have given me the privilege to be in the space with them, I realize what unbelievable potential and opportunity is available for every single young person. And so when you're teaching in youth corrections and you see the disproportionate number of Black students in that space, when you hear about the disproportionate outcomes of suspensions and expulsions globally for Black students, in particular in North America, and then you get the opportunity to connect with these young people and hear and understand their stories, their lived experiences that often are very similar to mine, I cannot, in good faith, not move forward with the idea of doing what I can and doing my part to advocate on behalf of them. Because the stories, the experiences that I've learned as a teacher, I've learned so much about myself through what I've learned about my young people. So it is a gift and a privilege and an honor to learn about their experiences. But I also realize that in learning about their experiences, how many of them have not had opportunities provided to them, whether it be through athletics, arts, STEM programs, coding, regional science programs, kids who have all of the opportunities to be able to be in those programs and be successful, and yet they are not giving those opportunities. And for me, I will lose sleep, I will lose my own time to advocate for every single Black youth because they deserve it. They deserve it. They are a privilege and an honor to work with. And like I've shared before, the 2 young men who were shot and killed, that broke me. It literally broke me because I saw so much in them and I was gifted the opportunity to learn so much from them, and their lives ended too short. And their lives ending short meant that other people didn't have the opportunity and the privilege to get to know them. And what they knew of them, for many people in society, were the negative things, the negative connotations that were associated with them and the stigmatization of the neighborhoods that they were coming from. But yet they didn't even realize the wonderful greatness that was in each of these young men. And so how many other young people are we losing? How many other young people have been told they're from this community, just forget them, they're not going to amount to anything. Their parents are like this. I cannot in good faith not continue this work when I hear people say things like those kids, that neighborhood, these communities, this family. What are you saying about those kids, this family? Because all I see is greatness. So can we take a moment as educators and really begin to unpack the beauty and excellence that is within all the Black bodies that we see within our schools? And if we continue to do that and we can celebrate that, we should have a whole bunch of people losing sleep, because everybody is trying to make sure that we see the greatness in the young people around us.
So, ladies, there are a number of other people that are also angry, right? And we want to talk about why they might be angry, but most importantly, now what? Right, so there are people angry for different reasons that you've come across, yes?
One of the things that's really hard to, when we're addressing things around racism, is that oftentimes people become very angry because they feel that, by talking about these conversations and having these uncomfortable moments, that we're actually creating more hatred and more division. And so, they want to kind of compartmentalize racism to make it comfortable for them and palatable for them. And it's not always going to be that. It's going to be complicated, it's going to be uncomfortable, and it's going to be challenging to actually think about our role and what we need to do to dismantle racism. And so I think one of the things that really needs to be understood is that even if you're angry about these conversations and about how people are even communicating that information through social media, what is the reason for it and where is it that we want to go? And so we need to think about what the end goal is.
There is no one person on earth right now that began racism. However, it is our responsibility right now in this moment to take action, to do something, to be an ally, to be an accomplice, to be a co-conspirator, whatever it means to be, and I'm speaking for white folks, whatever it means to be, this is our time to step up and step into the work. If ever a time before, the time is now.
We've been talking about the anger, and I'm angry, but now what? Both of you have been so passionate and so committed in channeling that energy to make things better, and it's come at a cost. Right? We say it's complicated. It's not just something that we talk about. It's come at a cost. It's cost relationships. It's cost future opportunities, perhaps. But what it does allow, it allows you to, when you close your eyes at night, allows you to realize and understand that you gave all that you can. You gave all that you had so that a young person could have a chance at seeing their brilliance, a chance of recognizing that they deserve everything, and a chance at redefining what's possible, not just for them, but for their families and through them for all of us. So for that, I'm so excited. I'm honored to be able to spend this time. There's a theologian from the 4th century named Augustine of Hippo, and he has a quote that says, "Hope has two beautiful daughters, anger and courage. The anger to look at the current situation and know that it could be better, and then the courage to do something about it." Here we have two amazing young ladies who are doing something about it. And they've dedicated their lives, their vocation, not just at their workplace, but outside, to making sure that things are better tomorrow than they are today because they were here. And for that, we applaud you. And we challenge you to do the same. Look at the situations that you're in. Maybe you're angry as well. You've gotten some brilliance and some wisdom in terms of what to do to channel that energy, to channel that anger, to make things better because you were here. And that's what we're called to do. Because greatness is possible. It's not guaranteed, but it's possible if we do what we can. If we look at each other through the eyes of Ubuntu, understanding that I am because you are, and act accordingly. It won't be easy, because it's complicated.